we have a safe community, that we're always looking forward, that we're always pushing, that we're always, making sure that people feel included and safe. And part of that is the people behind the scenes. And so I have with me Commander Lencioni here. She's been on the show many, many times, whether, talking special events or in her commander role, but I do have a guest here with me today. This is the first time on the show, and she's going to be amazing. And her name is Lacey Roberts. And in a second here, she's going to, tell everyone who she is. And what we want to talk about this morning is a little bit about officer wellness. And I think it's something that is very important that, the community the officers that police your community, people want to know who they are. What are they about? Are they good people? And part of that is also, it's a very and can be a very stressful job. And, the definition of stress is very different for people. If you
Yep.
have time and experience, things really kind of get less stressful because
Mhm.
you've seen it before. But their officers are people, and they have their emotions as humans. And, that sometimes does filter into, how they view the world and the lens in which they then police. And so it's important that, over the past many, many years, officer wellness has been a topic of conversation. But this year, there's some really good things that are happening, and truly because of Heather and Lacey, and the things that, I have a lot of people that will come and say, "Hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do this." And 99% of the time, I'm like, "Yes, I love it. I love it. What do you need from me?" But this was a little different in terms of like I guess, the impact that we hope that this has. This is not just a program or just a initiative or a kind of a one and done. This is an ongoing, never ending, very well needed type of initiative or program. So these ladies are here this morning to talk everything about that and about what they've been doing and the work that they've been doing. And so I truly appreciate you ladies first and foremost before we get started. In our profession, we do have, very, very strong women that when you find the strong women and man, anything is possible, and just supportive of women and wanting the best for people. And it's a truly great thing. They're great people. Obviously I work with them, but outside of that they're just really, really good people. So
Awesome.
and people I consider friends, so which is different, right? But
Absolutely, yeah.
so with that, let's start with you, Lacey. Introduce who you are, how long you've been at the Elgin Police Department, and what is a day in the life of Lacey Roberts on a payroll weekend.
Well, it depends on the day. My name is Lacey Roberts. I've been the financial analyst at the Elgin Police Department for 20 years. I work for the chief, I work for the deputy chief, I work for the command staff. Responsibilities are from budget to paying the bills to paying the cops, grants, the money, all that fun stuff.
And so Lacey is basically, when we want to do something and then I have to go and Lacey, can you find me some money? And then sometimes she's like, "Ugh, all right, well, you got to, she
I
keeps
always
me
find
in
her the
line.
money.
She finds money, but she does. She keeps, she keeps it in line, which is great. That's her job. So, yeah, so everything from payroll to budget, especially when we do our budget, she's a huge part of that and
Mhm.
making that, it's a long process. That's a 3, 5, 6 month process that there's various points where we have to do certain things, and she's a
Mhm.
huge part of that. Heather?
Yeah, so I'm Heather Lencioni. I'm a commander here at the police department. I will be starting my 23rd year, I believe, in April. I currently work in the operations division, so I oversee all patrol. Um, yeah, and this has been kind of like lifelong work for me. I was very fortunate in my first year and a half of being a police officer. There was an opening on the crisis negotiations team. And I thought, you know what, whatever, let me put my name in the hat and see what happens. And I'd been on the team for almost 20 years. So
Awesome.
some of those skills that you learn as a negotiator kind of became ingrained in the way that I saw policing. I thought that it's very important to, hear people's story, to, find out the why. A lot of times, in the academies, they don't necessarily teach you to ask the why. Sometimes it's, just the facts. You need to get on with your day, get on with the next call. But we do people a huge disservice if we don't stop and ask the why every now and then.
Mhm.
So that'll kind of lead into why we did what we did and where we're at today with officer wellness.
Yeah, so we do have a health and wellness coordinator, Chaplain Al Keating. He's a chaplain, but he's also a licensed psychologist on staff. And he's been there with us, for many years. So when officers go to a very, a stressful call, something, we do a checkup. Hey, how's it going? Or the supervisors will come, or we will come and say, hey, how is it going? What do you need? And every officer is different, and
Mhm.
you have to remember when I got hired in 1996, we had an incident in Elgin, JB shooting, which, if people have been in Elgin a long time, night shift, we respond to the shooting. A lot of people were shot, several people killed. Very like it was an active shooter. And that event, I mean, I can vividly remember going to the call, staying up all day because you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened. We come to the midnight shift roll call and it was just like business as usual. And
Mhm.
I mean, if that were to happen today, it would be a whole thing. We would have, counselors at the station. We would be making sure that the officers were okay. We would be following up. So it's not necessarily good. I mean, my generation of police officers and even Heather were in that generation. It was more of like, just handle the business and keep it moving, right? I don't necessarily agree with that philosophy. I think it's always important to check on people, but you have to be, you know, the check has to be relative to what they need, right?
Mhm.
Like I'm more of like, yeah, I'm good. Thank you I appreciate the check, right? Like where somebody might be, I need to talk about this. I need to, um, where we were many, many years ago to where we are now is a huge, huge shift, but it's also a lot of work to do. So I'm going to kind of, Heather and Lacey were involved in a women's kind of leadership symposium. And through that, they came back and they're like, hey, we want to pitch something to you. And, the two of them, they walk in my office. We want, and it's great because they smile, they have great energy, so I love it, right? So I was like, okay, what's up? And then they say, we want to try to do this wellness workshop for officers, and then we want to expand on it. So I said, absolutely, run with it, go for it. And because the why of what they want to do is to help the officers, not just the officers, but our professional support staff. So everyone that works at the Elgin Police Department. And so I'm never going to say no, right? And I'm just grateful and thankful that there are two people who think about someone other than themselves. And I love that because it's like, thank you, people. Like, so
Mhm.
I was like, absolutely. So from that, they started their planning, and which kind of culminated in a wellness workshop last month, and then we're moving on some other things. But let's talk, ladies, a little bit about kind of, and I'll let whoever wants to go. But you know, how did you guys? You go to this event, you come back, you're driving in the car, and then you guys are brainstorming. So let's kind of talk a little bit about that from both your perspectives.
Yeah, so we were on our way back from the Women in Criminal Justice Conference last year in East Peoria, and great energy. I had gone to that conference maybe 5 or 6 years earlier, and there was maybe 50 women in the room. Last year and the year before, I think last year was the first year that was completely sold out. So over 300 women from all over the state of Illinois, and you know there was a lot of topics about officer wellness, retention, recruitment, because all of them are really interrelated when you think about it. And back in like towards 2019, 2020, I started kind of accumulating this binder that sat in Lacey's office for quite some time because I thought, there you come across articles, you're like, wow, that's really interesting. I wish we could do something like that. I had all these really great ideas, but even just as recently as last night, Lacey and I were talking. He said, the timing wasn't right. When I
Mhm.
had all this material and I thought like, I know we need this, but I don't know how to do it. And I know that I can't be the only person to do it. And, now going back and reopening that binder and seeing the stuff, I'm like, yep, now I've got names. Now I know who needs to be part of it. Now I know, like, I've identified, the key people who I think, like, oh, this would be a great role for that person. Um, Part of the reason that officer wellness becomes and has been such a huge topic is that, statistically speaking, police officers in their first 3 years are exposed to more traumatic events than most people experience in a lifetime.
Mhm.
So you have to figure out, to the chief's point, everybody processes that differently. It looks
Mhm.
different for different people, but there is a tendency among police officers to develop bad habits very early, whether it's alcohol or cheating or theft or, everybody's prone to it. We're all human. Um, so what if we did something different? There's what if we did something where we addressed those behaviors before they became problems? You know, because a lot of the peer support programs that are out there they're great. There's definitely a need for them. But they are when the crisis is happening. It's already spiraled. And so what you're trying to do is salvage that officer and protect them from themselves and making any more bad decisions from there. So, you know, Lacey and I had talked about it and said, like, well, let's do this thing that talks about all the different facets of wellness, because it's not just the exposure to traumatic events or death or, you know, tragedy. It is, you know, your physical health. It's your financial health. It's your spiritual health. How are you as a human being? How do you relate with other people? And if you don't tap into where those deficiencies are in each officer, because they're all going to be different, then the peer support in the moment of the crisis program doesn't really work. So what we had talked about was developing this kind of preventative wellness workshop where we could start to have these conversations, because they are difficult. You know, it's hard for people to step up and say, like, I'm not there at the crisis yet, but there are some things that I could probably clean up. There's some things that I should maybe look at myself in the mirror and say, is this the best version of myself that I can be? And so when I brought Lacey this information, Lacey and I have been friends for a very long time. And I wanted her to know that it is as important. And this is one of my very strong messages of the police department, that just because you're not a sworn officer does not make you less than. In fact, it makes you more than in some circumstances, because they are the backbone to us. They allow us the freedom to act, you know, the way that we do. They don't judge us. And they're normal people. So, Lacey, why don't you talk about your perspective in all this?
As Heather mentioned, as we were coming back from this conference, and we're just kind of chit-chatting in the car and brainstorming on the way home, coming off the energy, and I mean, we were around some powerhouse women, so it was really great. And I am very proud of the department that I work at, that we're very progressive in some of the things we do. We're also very lucky that we're a little bit bigger. We have more staff, we have a little more funding to do things than some of our other brother and sister departments around us. So we're brainstorming, and we're like, you know, what if we did, and it was kind of a joke, I'm like, what if we did a wellness workshop? Take some of these ideas and build on them. And at first the wellness workshop was kind of a joke, but it became just that. So we walked into Anna's office and we're like, hey, we have an idea. Now, it doesn't hurt that I'm in charge of the money, so that was part of it too. But I would like to give a little bit of a shout out to the Aurora Police Department, because in our conversations with them, internally, they have something called the 4 pillars of support, like Heather mentioned. So it's mental health, physical health, financial health, and spiritual health, whatever that means to you. So I'm like, oh, that's great. And we kind of, at first, we asked for the workshop, but we didn't have the plan for the workshop. So it very organically came together with the speakers and who attended. And we ended up inviting 7 other of our local agencies to participate and have a seat in the room. It wasn't your typical training. It was all about law enforcement support, like Heather said. You're right. I am not on the street. I don't see the things that you guys see, but I also work in a, you know, fast-paced, high-stress job. So how do I show up? How am I squared away so that I can do what I need to do to support them internally? Whatever that may be. And it's a very unique environment that you have, everybody goes through things in life, you know, they process grief and loss and financial health, but when you are in a job, a career where you process trauma over and over and over again, there's a little more support that we need. And I think we're doing a great job of that. From all of the police departments that attended, the feedback was, this is amazing. We want more of this. They started calling it the first annual. So that leads us to, we need to have a second annual. And I think we're going to do some great partnerships. I don't want to leave the fire department out of this, because they are also first responders. So this isn't just for police. But I think that we have some great ideas, the right people, it's the right timing, and this is going to be something really great. We have some great ideas moving forward.
And so this the wellness workshop that they put on was a full day event, and I was there too, and I stayed the entire time. You know, like my intention was, all right, I'm going to pop in, I'm going to do my speaking in the beginning, stay a couple hours. And, I had things that I had to do that day, but I was like, nope, I'm going to be there the entire day. And as I sat through there, people are at different parts of their career. I've been a police officer for a very long time, and it's just, it's different, right? People's lives are different. But as you sit there and you think about it, it's important to me because although I may be towards the end of my career, there are brand new officers that are just coming in. And so it's very important to me as the police chief to remember that, to constantly have that thing in the back of my head talking about, right? Because sometimes I'm just like, well, like a supervisor. Okay, just do this. Like, come on, like I give them just my full faith and confidence because I'm like, yeah, they got it, right? But then I realize, wait a minute, they don't have the experience yet, right? Like you got to just teach.
Mhm.
It's a little bit different. So even with this, young officers who are very various points in their careers, people are in the middle of their careers, and then there's circumstances. And so, as I sat through the workshop and listened to the speakers, and just it's a great reminder of why we need to do this. And it was received. You could see it, and you're in an environment. It's very when you're in an environment where people can just be who you are. No pretense, no worrying about, a lot of times people talk to people and it's the lens of how does this person want me to be? So you modify your behavior, you modify what you say instead of just be who you are. And a lot of times people are afraid to do that because they don't think people will like them. They don't think people will receive them. But the comfortability of just saying this is who I am. My flaws, my positives, my negatives, my angst, my love, my this, my that, it's just a very, that environment I think encouraged that. And I think it starts where you can't help yourself. If I have this problem going on, if I'm not even self-aware or even ready to accept it because I'm in conflict avoidance denial, right? Those are
Mhm.
my favorite words, right? Um, you're never going to be able to fix your problem, right?
Right.
So I think it was a great how it was structured between mental health in terms of finances, your spiritual, whatever that is, whatever it is that you believe. So let's talk a little bit about that day. And what was each speaker that you had a message, right? That was
Mhm.
the point of it. So what was the message? And then the second question would be, as we move forward and the feedback that you guys received from it, what does the next 2 years of this wellness initiative look like for you ladies?
Go ahead.
Well, the day itself, we had 65 attendees, and it ranged from we have officers that weren't even in our field training yet, they were fresh out of the academy. We had civilians, we had chaplains, social workers, um, officers with 1 to 5 years on, and then we had other people in the room that had, 20 plus years on. So it was a myriad of different people. Um, the first speaker was our very own Danny Flores. He is one of our community outreach coordinators and special events planners. So he has a personal story of born and raised for the beginning of his life in Mexico, how he came here and he didn't even speak English, found faith, and it's a big story. So I'll just kind of bullet
Hmm.
point that. But his testimony of then how why the youth empowerment program is he's so passionate about that because he was one of those kids. And now he works beside us to help those kids. So he sees himself in them, and he has a very, very powerful story. Um, we had Tim Cooney on. He is the deputy chief in Algonquin. So he talks about personal finance. Um, and this is part of his story too. Him and his wife, as he started with his pension and investing in all of that, him and his wife actually paid off $67,000 worth of debt in 10 months. So his financial message of it's very important what you do with your money. You're right out of college, you're making good money, you're making overtime. What does that look like and what are you doing with it? And some people just don't, they weren't raised that way. They don't have that intelligence.
Mhm.
So we provided that too, and everybody loved that. And then the second half of the day, we had a speaker, Elma Burke, and Kevin, her husband Kevin, they're former LAPD. And we connected with Elma at the Women in Law Enforcement Conference, and what was her rank?
Who's assistant chief?
Assistant chief.
Mhm.
So she patrolled Compton, she patrolled Watts. She joined during the Rodney King riots. So as far as the job goes and personal relationships and some of the politics involved in that, and then just also being a female in law enforcement and rising through the ranks. She spoke to the room about her law enforcement career. So that was kind of the layout of the day.
Yeah, and part of the training too is, you have to think about the structure of your training. So, you know, cops are a very fickle group of people. Like we definitely know our own out there. You can walk into a room and you're like, oh, give the eyebrow raise, and you see like you give the head nod, and you're like, yep, I see you. Which also makes it very difficult to teach other police officers because we're very judgy. Like that's just naturally who we are. That is part of who you are as a police officer. Being judgmental is not a bad thing. Sometimes that's what actually saves your life when you have to
Yes.
make a sudden call. But by and large, every day it's like, oh, you're walking into a room full of cops here. Here we go. Excuse me. And then when I teach for the state, I teach crisis intervention. I walk in and I always use it as a joke, but it's kind of an icebreaker. And I say, I know everybody in here. I say I can tell the people who are paying attention, the ones who did the encyclopedia, like what is she all about? What has she done?
They
Who is
Googled
she?
you.
Yeah, did a full background on me 5 minutes
Yeah.
after I walked in there. So we knew that developing this training meant that we had to have the right people in the room, and you have to have the right people with just the right amount of experience, the right amount of clout, so that people actually tune in and they listen. And then there's the other part of, structure, right? The actual physical makeup of the room actually makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So we did the training outside of Elgin. We were down at the Riverside Receptions in Geneva. It's a beautiful facility. Sometimes getting people out of their comfort zone makes them just kind of tune in a little bit better anyway. So it was important for us to get outside of our house, bring people all together, and then really allow for like an open environment. Everybody lets their guard down a little bit. There's no home rules here. It's just going to be a very honest, open discussion, and getting the right people to sit in those seats to have those initial talks, I think, was absolutely key.
And I think the main thing, we have about 5 minutes left here, so I want them to kind of just talk about, what we look forward to and what we're planning to do with this. And it's very important. I think the message too, and I think you can't give to people when you're not in a good place, right? You cannot come to and at any level of an organization, you can't help people. You can't, hey, what do you need? How are you doing? What's going on? Because you're taking on their problem, right? But if I have all these problems going on in my head, I can't even focus because my own life, I'm not at peace with myself. Whatever it is, financially, spiritually, this, that, this, you're never going to be able to give to, in my opinion, to people. You're never going to be able to be the best version of yourself to the community, and you have to, the hours. And when somebody does come to you and say, I feel this, right? Like, I'm bothered by this, right? You can't be like, oh, well, okay. Can you do this in 5 minutes because I got to go? No, right? I have been in my office and I've been there for 12 hours and somebody walks in and they say, hey, and I'm like, yep, I got you. Sit down. What's going on, right? Like, because you have to be in a place where you can give that to people. And for me, it's simple. Be a good person. Be a kind person, right? Like, that doesn't mean you don't have conflict. That doesn't mean that there's difference of opinions. That's what makes the world go around. But when you truly say, I want this person to be happy, right? I want this person to experience joy in their life, love, care, kindness. I want this person to, view a little bit of the world the way I see it, right? Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but like in terms of kindness, I think you're never going to go wrong with that. And I think that's what the kind of the motivation is. And I think that's what, and people find it very differently. So let's talk about, upcoming things and what we plan to do. We have about 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes.
Well, I don't know how much.
I would just give a preview.
Okay.
Just a preview. Don't give too much.
Okay. We'll have to come back and give you all the
There you go.
details
There
when,
you
when,
go.
when
She's
it's
gonna come
when it's a
back.
hit and it's a success. We are in the process of developing a wellness unit. This will be a permanent unit for the Elgin Police Department. So there's more to come on that. So
Yeah,
a
we
little
just
bit of a
put a
spoiler.
pin on
Yeah,
that.
a little bit of a spoiler alert. But we are going to get all the right people that we already have internally that will support this unit and be in these positions for the right reasons. As Anna mentioned, Al Keating is already on staff with us. He will play a major part in all of this. And I did want to say, first and foremost, thank you very much for letting us do this.
welcome.
Thank you for believing in us. And
welcome.
we had an idea and you were like, okay, do it. And Heather and I had a lot of conversations. We were like,
Most of the time, I'm just going to say this. If Lacey walks in by herself, I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on. So what she'll do is she'll pull Heather, because Heather's usually like, she's the more like, okay, well,
we
hey,
balance each other
hey,
well.
Chief, where Heather's the more where Lacey's just like, and which I appreciate, right? So you're welcome, ladies, and thank you for what you guys do.
We are a good balance.
Yes, you are.
To each other here, but it is important, and we'll echo what Lacey said, that this doesn't happen without the support of your top-down organization. You have to have buy-in from your chief, and even to some of the internal conversations that we've had as a result of this has been like people say like we don't want this to go away, and there is a very real possibility. The chief will be here for only a short while longer. And you don't know what's going to happen, but it is
Go
important.
eventually.
It is important for longevity, right? So that people inside the organization know that just because there might be changes, and there's always going to be change,
Exactly.
no matter what, that the priorities remain the same.
Exactly.
And that has been kind of our overarching goal here, is to make sure that what we started doesn't die, and that it continues to be something where just in a conversation I had with Danny Flores yesterday, we were talking about the sustainability of this unit means that people get to go out the way that they choose. So that when you leave this department, whether it's 5 years, you go do something different, 10 years, 15, you go out on your own terms, and you don't go out because you're embarrassed, ashamed, you're broke, you're suicidal, we don't want people to be unhealthy. You've worked too long and too hard, and you've done too many good things along your career to throw it all away. So that is the overarching things to come. We want it to be, okay, we're going to have to put a cap on the number of people in this unit because it's
Oh, yeah.
so big. So yes, thank you, Chief, for
Of
all
course.
the support in this. It means a lot.
Yep. So I will have the ladies back on, where the next step also is we're going to be kind of doing we have this event. We're going to bring the people back in the room and kind of just really drill down at the Elgin Police Department. What does this look like? Because the other thing is, you talk about a wellness workshop. Part of that is you have to get people's opinions, right? This is not we're going to do this and you're going to receive it. And things like that never work, right? That's a bad strategy. So get people in the room, kind of, round table a little bit, strategize, what do we want this to look like? How, and all different types of people, young officers in the midpoint, towards the end of retirement, professional support staff, and then brainstorm and then kind of see how that evolves. So, in the next maybe after the summer, we'll bring the ladies back on to talk about, where we're at and just kind of do a little bit of a checkpoint. But I wanted, again, this information is, internally what's kind of happening at the police department, but this is so the community kind of sees, and it pulls the lens back a little bit, where this is what, the type of officers that are serving your community, right? And they want to be the best versions of themselves to deliver the best service to the community, to take care of them. So thank you, ladies, for all that you do every day. This workshop, beautiful ladies, both inside and out. Thank you, WRMN, for, the time this morning. And I'll be back next weekend or next week with another show.
There you go.
Any
and
last
thank you.
words you want to say bye to anyone?
No, thank you
Okay,
for
there
having
you
me.
go.
Thank
Of
you for
course.
having me.
Thank you for all you do. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.